There's an American man living in Mexico. He's in his 30s. He's a multimillionaire, but he gets around by blowing on and sucking a straw. The man's name is John Morrow, and he has a particular motor neuron condition, which has meant that every motor neuron connector or receptor or whatever it is in his body is finished, is complete, is not working. The only part of his body that works is his head. But as a result of using his head, as a result of his ability to write, and he's a beautiful writer, he's a blogger essentially, he is a multimillionaire. However, his life expectancy is short, very short, and at either 34 or 39 years of age, he's actually considered to be very old given his condition, and he's one of the longest living people with his condition in the world. But I was listening to a podcast, an interview with him last weekend, and I found I had something in common with him, and that was that when he first started his business, he was concerned about failure. He was so concerned about failure, and the medical aid system in America is such that if he failed, if his business did not work, he would have had turned his back on medical aid in America, and he would have been slapped into a nursing home to spend the rest of his life in a nursing home. His father had a very, very successful property development business that went belly up with the bust in the downturn in the property market in America. And so he ended up having to support both of his parents, his mother and his father. His mother because she had never worked, because she had given her whole life to helping him survive. And he was told, or she was told, that he wouldn't live past the age of 9 or 10. His father's business, as I say, went bust, and so John Morrow, getting around in a wheelchair, blowing a straw, ended up supporting both of his parents. But the one lesson that I took from the interview, and the one thing that he attributed his success to, was the powerful motivation provided by fear. In other words, he knew that if his business did not work, if his business did not succeed, he was going into a nursing home, there to spend the rest of his life until he died. This reminded me of my own situation a few years ago when my property investment, where I had invested practically all of my capital, had got badly hit and basically wiped out by the fall, or crash rather, in the Irish property market. At that time, I ended up going into a garage at home with some law books at the age of, I think I was 42 or 43. And I sat in the garage day after day for something like 15 weeks. And I studied the law books, and I did what I had to do in terms of passing exams. And I sat, I think it was 8 exams, law exams, to get into the Law Society professional practice course at one sitting after a period of, I think, about 16 weeks of intensive study. Most people would have taken the exams 2 or 3 at a time. I sat 8 and passed 8. I'm not saying that to boast. I'm saying that because what I'm saying essentially is that the fear of failure, the prospect of not passing, the prospect of not doing the work, would have left me in a situation where I had lost all of my capital, and where my retailing business was sold, my property business had gone tits up essentially, and I now had to worry about paying a mortgage, supporting a family, and so on, and what I was going to do basically with the rest of my life, because I had no capital to start again. And this was in 2008 or thereabouts, when the market had crashed and the banks were essentially bust. My back was to the wall, and I thankfully, remarkably, passed all the bloody exams at one sitting, and ended up then getting into a legal career. And I've built upon that, and I've worked at it, and I've worked very, very hard. But what I want you to take from this video is that the fear of failure, I think, is perhaps a more powerful motivator to help you get stuff done than a positive looking forward to something is fantastic. But I think if your back is to the wall, if the options for failure are just so horrific, like John Morrow, like the guy in the wheelchair blowing the straw, getting around, I think that if you really put your back to the wall and use fear as a motivation, I think you can achieve remarkable things. So this last weekend was an interview that I heard with John Morrow on a podcast I was listening to, and I was cutting the grass around the back of my house, and I was cutting the grass beside the garage in which I studied to become a solicitor. And I ended up sitting exams like at the age of 42 or 43 or something, in excess of 20 years after I had previously sat an exam. So that's an example, an illustration, like John Morrow, of something that you can really, really achieve if your back is to the wall. I'm going to post a photograph of the carriage, but I hope you take from this that you can really harness the power of fear. You can harness the power of fear of failure. You can really, really back yourself into a corner, and you can achieve remarkable things. Hope you find this useful. If you do, give us a thumbs up down below, and you might be interested in commenting or sharing or liking or sharing with your friends or subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope you find this useful.